NYPD barriers have been set up for safety and security purposes. If you move,
Hey guys, wow. You're standing at the edge of a protest, and suddenly it's not a protest anymore. It's chaos. Your eyes sting. The street echoes with screams, batons crack on metal fences, and someone's yelling, "Get her out! She's pregnant!" A girl runs past you, face smeared with pepper spray, gripping a water bottle like it's a weapon. A child is sobbing behind a barricade. You don't know if the flashbang you just heard came from the police or from someone in the crowd. And honestly, you don't have time to figure it out. You probably won't survive this if you don't keep moving. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your city and local time in the comments. Let's map this moment together, and let's go on the journey of today's story together. It's July 2025, and what began as a peaceful vigil in front of the ICE field office on Barrack Street has now spilled into full-blown confrontation. Organizers had planned a quiet action, candles, chants, stories. Instead, you're watching 12 armored officers corner a 17-year-old and zip-tie her wrists while she screams for her mom. This wasn't supposed to happen. A local pastor had brought sandwiches, 2 yoga teachers led meditation, even a couple of off-duty nurses showed up with gauze and water. But now, ambulances line the block and helicopters hover low like hungry birds. One man throws a signpost through a car window. A dog barks in circles around its leash. "Back up or you will be detained," echoes over a loudspeaker as if it were automated. It kind of is. You don't even know what triggered the shift from silence to sirens. Maybe it was when Miguel shouted, "They took my father for working." Maybe it was when ICE agents started filming faces from behind tinted vans. Maybe it was just inevitable. Meanwhile, in Ohio that same week, ICE agents mistakenly raided a home of a 61-year-old U.S. citizen, citing an address glitch in the warrant system. The system didn't break. It was built this way. Hours before your shoes were soaked in spilled milk and pepper spray residue, the street was quiet. You remember this because you were here. Just a few hours ago, the sun hadn't even risen yet, and already people had begun to gather. You could smell the fresh ink from the signs, "No human is illegal," "Abolish ICE, let us dream." By 10 a.m., the crowd had grown to several hundred, mostly students, undocumented families, clergy, social workers. The mood wasn't angry, it was reverent. This was supposed to be a vigil. Someone passed around tamales from a foil tray. A man with a guitar played a folk song in Spanish that made a mother next to you cry. You watched a teenage girl light a lavender candle and whisper something into the flame. The police kept their distance, arms crossed, helmets clipped to their belts. A few even smiled. You started to believe, just for a second, that maybe this city was finally listening. That illusion broke around 12:42 p.m. when ICE vehicles rolled in, not from the street, but from the alley behind the building. That's when everything changed. Protesters surged. Shouts flew. "Stay calm. Protect the families. Film everything." But then the crowd was boxed in, one line from the front, one from behind. They'd done this before. According to a statement later released by ICE, the agency had received actionable intelligence of potential threats and intervened to prevent escalation. But no weapons were found. No threats substantiated. What was intercepted instead was fear, community, defiance. People were ready to speak, not fight. Meanwhile, New York's own Office of Immigrant Affairs had publicly urged ICE to respect community space and refrain from engaging in intimidation during lawful assembly just days prior. But those words vanished into the air like tear gas. Elsewhere in Texas, ICE released a promotional video touting tactical innovations for domestic urban operations, a slick, high-budget reel complete with fast cuts, drone shots, and agents rappelling from rooftops. You wonder who the audience was for that film, because it sure wasn't the people lighting candles. You first notice Miguel when he steps onto a makeshift wooden crate, a trembling bullhorn in hand. He's 19, lanky, wearing a denim jacket with a hand-painted eagle on the back. You can't tell if the eagle's supposed to be Mexican or American, but maybe that's the point. He raises the bullhorn like it weighs 50 pounds. His voice cracks at first, but then he says it clearly. They took my dad from our home in Queens while he was fixing the dishwasher. They didn't even let him wipe the soap off his hands. You feel the crowd tighten. Some people lower their signs. You don't move. Miguel continues, his voice rising. He paid taxes. He coached soccer. He taught me how to put others first. ICE called him removable alien like he's nothing, but my father is a man, and I'm not going anywhere. A cheer breaks out, but it doesn't last, because that's the moment when the first push comes. An officer shoves a girl standing nearby. Miguel flinches. You see it coming before it hits an officer, jabs his baton into Miguel's ribs. The crate tumbles. The bullhorn cracks against the curb. Miguel's words are cut mid-sentence like a wire yanked from a speaker. You rush toward him, but someone grabs your arm. Don't, they whisper. You'll be next. And they're not wrong. A flash of vests, radio static, boots pounding pavement. You see Miguel trying to crawl away, but they drag him back like he's nothing. Later, you find out Miguel wasn't even charged. He was taken to a holding facility for identity verification. They released him at 2 a.m. with a warning. No record, no apology, no explanation. Across social media, the hashtags Free Miguel and ICE out of NYC trend briefly before being buried under celebrity news. A conservative op-ed from the New York Post frames the incident differently. Radical agitators clashed with authorities after lawful detainment at immigration protests. No mention of Miguel's father. No mention of Miguel at all. And in an ICE press release that same day, the agency highlights excellent coordination between field agents and local law enforcement, praising the operation as professional and measured. But you were there. You saw Miguel fall. You sit on the curb that night, cold coffee in one hand, your phone in the other, scrolling through the numbers. Always the numbers. ICE says 86 were arrested in the sweep, 42 of them non-citizens with prior violations. But what kind of violations? Parking tickets? Expired visas? Nobody's saying. And you're beginning to realize that's the point. Track Immigration reports a 42% spike in ICE arrests in New York over the past 3 months. But the majority weren't violent criminals. In fact, 68% had no criminal record at all. Just names on a list. And you wonder how many names had been added after tonight. People who showed up with candles, not weapons. Names that disappeared behind bars with no charges. Back home, you run your fingers over a crumpled flyer you grabbed off the sidewalk. Defend the Dreamers. End detention now. At the bottom, a phone number for a legal aid group is smudged, unreadable. Meanwhile, ICE quietly updated its webpage the same night with a press release headlined Operation Safe Streets Succeeds in NYC, highlighting targeted enforcement and community safety restoration. In one surreal paragraph, it brags about how agents executed the operation without significant injury or property damage. You reread that twice, remembering the blood-stained gauze and cracked storefront windows. The data doesn't lie, but it doesn't comfort either. In a post-raid interview, an ICE spokesperson told Reuters, "These individuals violated the law. We simply enforced it." But the law feels like quicksand tonight. You think about how ICE redefined the term enforcement priority back in 2023 to include almost anyone, undocumented janitors, nannies, students. Every statistic you read bleeds into the faces you saw. And it's not just New York. Across the country, similar sweeps were happening. In Los Angeles, 140 were arrested in a week-long community integrity initiative. In Georgia, a family of 4 was detained during a wellness check. The numbers grow like vines, twisting, spreading, choking off the sunlight. The ICE Field Manual, yes, it's real, includes language about minimizing media presence during active operations and managing perception. You read it like a horror novel. Because tonight, perception is everything. And you were there when the truth got buried beneath a number. You scroll through the headlines the next morning, and it's like reading 2 different realities. One article calls it a violent clash. Another calls it a breakdown of order. But you were there, remember? And what you saw didn't begin with violence, it ended with it. The question haunts you. What counts as violence? Is it a water bottle tossed at a shield? A chant shouted too loud? Or is it a badge, a baton, a line of riot gear forcing itself through a crowd of teenagers holding hands? You replay the moment in your head, someone yelled, "They're pushing!" and bodies moved like dominoes. You didn't see who threw the first bottle. Maybe no one did. But that didn't stop news anchors from using that frame, looping it again and again. One bottle, one headline, 86 arrests. And yet, you also remember the woman with the white cane, sitting cross-legged on the sidewalk with a sign that read, "I'm blind, but I see the truth." She was arrested too. A political columnist from The Independent tweeted, "Anarchists attempted to storm ICE facility. Force was necessary." The post gained traction. You wanted to reply, "What part of a candlelight vigil looks like anarchy?" But you didn't, because you're scared, because everyone's watching. That same day, ICE posted a slideshow of images labeled "Professional Response in NYC," men in uniform, detainees blurred out. The caption, "Restoring order through resolve." No photos of the girl who fainted from heat stroke, no footage of Miguel on the sidewalk, just men with polished boots and Photoshop lighting. You talked to Rosa, a social worker who was there, who spent the night giving statements and pouring peroxide on scrapes. They call it violent, she tells you, but you know what violence is? Separating a mother from her kid and calling it lawful. Later, at a bodega, someone recognizes you from the protest live stream. "Weren't you there?" they ask. "Was it really as bad as they say?" You hesitate, not because you doubt the truth, but because you're starting to see how truth bends under power. And bending, in this case, might be more dangerous than breaking. You meet Lucia 2 days later at a church basement in Queens, where a makeshift legal aid center has sprung up. She's quiet at first, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the floor. But when she speaks, it's like a dam breaking. "My husband was at that protest," she says. "We went together. He was holding my hand. When the crowd surged, we got separated. I never saw him again." You ask if she's called hospitals, jails, ICE. "All of them," she says. "They tell me they don't have anyone by that name, but he hasn't come home." Her husband's name is Omar. No criminal record, not even a traffic ticket. Just one of the 86 names that now lives in a file folder labeled pending identification. And then there's Mateo, a 17-year-old high school junior who hasn't gone back to class since the raid. "They know I was there," he tells you. "Someone said they saw me on a live stream. My counselor said it's not safe for me to come back yet." Mateo's DACA renewal is pending. If ICE wants to find me, they know where to look. You hear story after story, people vanishing without paperwork, phones suddenly disconnected, rooms left with toothbrushes still wet. The ICE website maintains a detainee locator tool, but when you try Omar's name, it returns, "No results found." ICE doesn't always notify families. Sometimes they don't even notify lawyers. One woman tells you about her niece, a college freshman who was arrested for obstruction after trying to help a friend during the protest. She spent 36 hours in a van, handcuffed, without food or water. ICE later claimed she was transferred out of jurisdiction due to overcrowding to a facility in Louisiana. Her hearing? Scheduled for October. Meanwhile, a recent report by the ACLU reveals that ICE transfers between states have increased by 64% in the past year, many done without family notification. One official told the Marshall Project, "It's not policy, it's practice, a disappearing act." You realize this is enforcement, it's erasure, and it's working. You ride the subway home, and it's quiet, too quiet. Your reflection in the scratched plexiglass window stares back at you like it's asking a question you can't answer. Who gets to belong? Around you, life continues. Someone scrolling TikTok, another man asleep against a metal pole, two teenagers laughing in Spanish over a shared bag of chips. None of them knows that less than 48 hours ago, riot gear trampled their streets. None of them knows that Omar still hasn't been found. You think about the word belonging and how it's used like a prize you have to earn. Obey the law, pay taxes, don't speak too loud, don't march. But Miguel's dad did all that, and ICE still came. Belonging, it seems, isn't earned. It's bestowed or revoked. Back above ground, you pass a mural that reads, "We all belong here." It's been defaced. Someone spray-painted "no" over the word all. You stand in front of it for a long minute, trying to decide what to feel. You remember Rosa's words, "They don't care if you follow the law. They care if you make noise." And suddenly, that explains everything. Why ICE tracks protests, why live streams freeze at the worst moments, why camera batteries mysteriously die. You're not just dealing with arrests, You're dealing with a system that thrives on silence. Meanwhile, Wired magazine just published a deep dive on ICE's use of facial recognition during public gatherings. They found that software originally designed for counterterrorism has been quietly deployed at immigrant-led protests since 2022, matching social media photos to DMV databases. You remember seeing a drone overhead during the march. You thought it was press. Now you're not so sure. Belonging isn't about paperwork anymore. It's about visibility. And if you're too visible, too loud, too brave, you become a problem. You remember the blind woman with the sign, "I see the truth." You remember Miguel's voice. You remember Lucia's silence. And you start to wonder, in a country that polices who belongs, maybe the most dangerous thing you can do is stand still and be seen. You open your phone one last time and stare at the raw footage you captured. Miguel falling. Omar vanishing behind a wall of blue. Lucia trembling as she describes the last time she held her husband's hand. You wonder what to do with it all. You could post it. You could tag the media. But would anyone listen? The video platform's warning message pops up before you even hit upload. This content may violate community standards. You laugh, bitterly. What standard is this? The one where truth is too disturbing to acknowledge? You remember a headline from ICE's own news portal, "Public misunderstandings drive distrust in law enforcement." Misunderstanding? You saw it. You filmed it. They labeled it distortion. Still, you hit post. You watch it buffer. You type your caption slowly. "This happened in my city. These are my neighbors. Don't look away." You expect the backlash, but instead comments start rolling in. "That's my cousin. I was there too. They got my dad." You feel the static of something rising, a digital march, a reassembly of voices they tried to scatter. Then you remember the last thing Mateo said. "They erased my record before, but they can't erase what people saw." And that sticks with you, because that's all you've got really. Witness, memory, the will to not shut up. You can't undo the arrests. You can't bring Omar home, but you can fight the forgetting. You can remind others that this happened right here, under a blue sky, next to a corner store, at a church basement. So here's what you do next. You share the footage. You talk to your friends. You call your rep. You donate to the Immigrant Legal Fund. You write letters. You show up again, even if it's just with a candle and a sign that says, "I saw what you did." And you don't let them bury Miguel's name in another spreadsheet. You say it out loud as many times as it takes, because silence is their weapon. And your voice? That's the resistance. You walk home under a sky smeared with amber and smoke. The city exhales, unaware. Somewhere, a saxophone plays through a cracked window. A mother drags her kid's backpack along the sidewalk. You wonder how many of them know what happened just 2 nights ago. How many of them saw and how many chose not to. You sit on your stoop, watching the neighborhood settle. It's funny how peace looks the same, even after something breaks. But you don't feel broken. You feel aware. And that's something. You think about Miguel. You hope he made it home. You imagine Lucia, still waiting, maybe leaving the porch light on a little longer tonight. You picture Mateo, staring at a school hallway he's not sure he'll ever walk down again. These aren't headlines. These are lives still moving, still hoping. And you're part of that now. A small thread in a bigger weave, one that holds if you keep pulling. So you decide, right here on your block, to carry their names a little longer. Speak them to a friend. Post their stories. Hold that discomfort in your chest a few seconds more. Because the world doesn't change from explosions. It changes from echoes. So tonight, breathe slower. Speak softer. Let what you've seen settle like dust. Let it teach you. Let it change your posture, your choices, the way you look at a news headline or a protest sign. Then, tomorrow, do one thing. Just one. Share this video. Light a candle. Tell a neighbor. Whisper someone's name into a silence that was never meant to be quiet. You saw what they did. Now show the world what you'll do.